Why can't I keep a long-term relationship? What is wrong with me? Feeling unlovable was one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life.
I always felt like a failure. There's something wrong with me that I can't make relationships work.
When it comes to love, so many of us have been hurt so many times.
You start to get close-minded and close-hearted. Every time I open myself up to someone, I'm rejected. Find a way to move through the negativity.
It's really hard to create lasting relationships. There's a key to creating connection, and there is a key to having something that actually lasts.
There's a process to getting to that expansive and deep connection.
How do I even start?
First, you need to Hey, Heart Leader community, if you're liking this video, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. So, my love, in our last podcast, we talked a lot about how deep our relationship has grown to become. And it's easy to look at things from where we are now and say, well, of course, relationships can be deep and beautiful, and we want everyone to have a relationship that feels like a honeymoon every day. Nearly 11 years after we first met, that is like what we have, right? But there's a process to getting to that expansive and deep of a connection. And I would say it's important that we talk about that too, because it's easy. And I know I wanted to go from just meeting someone to being where we are now. Fairy tales tell us that we can do that. All of these movies show us that this should be what's possible. So we get this false notion in our minds that this is what every relationship should be. And then we find that what relationships can actually be and more tend to be is what we talked about in our previous podcast, which is where it feels more like a battlefield sometimes, and we feel dysregulated, and there isn't that harmony that we talk about we feel now. So to keep people from feeling like they're failing, which is what I always felt like, I'm a failure.
Mm.
I fail in my relationships all the time. I will never be good at having a relationship. I want to make sure that we take the time after coming off of the previous podcast to talk about the difference between what we discussed last week with a dysregulated emotional approach that every relationship has, even ours,
Mm.
and how to get to where we are coming up on 11 years since we met, and just that journey, right? So that nobody listens and thinks, well, why am I not there yet if I've been married for 20 years?
Mm.
What is the difference between expansive, open heart connection and what we discussed last week? Do you ever get tired of that negative voice in your head telling you what you can and cannot do? My name is Amber Mikesell, and I personally got tired of that villainous voice controlling my inner realm. So I wrote this book, Silence Your Inner Critic. It's a comic book type series where you go in and you fight that villainous foe all along an epic quest. You can learn more about this fun-filled adventure over at silenceyourinnercritic.com, and you can purchase your copy right there, or you can purchase it wherever you enjoy buying books.
Length of a relationship and breadth of a relationship are not the same. You could be together for 30, 40, 50 years and still not have breadth of relationship. You can be together for 2 or 3 years and have incredible breadth of relationship, but not yet maybe enough experience. And so I feel like we are at this unique space at 11 years. Our relationship has had different dynamics, even in what it is.
Mhm.
Um, but through it, we started with an immense amount of breadth, and then we built experience through that breadth. And much like what you always say, and I love this, is that uh, knowledge is limited by awareness. Once you have the awareness, then you can gain the knowledge. But if you gain all the knowledge, you don't know what to do with it. You just then it doesn't really do you any good. And so when we're talking about deep connected relationships, especially in a romantic partnership like ours, but this could also be in friendships. This could be in parent-child relationship. This could be sibling. This could be coworkers. However you want to, any relationship in your life,
Yeah.
there is a key to creating breadth. There is a key to creating connection. And there is a key to having something that actually lasts. It's really hard to create lasting relationships from a surface level perspective. And when you have breadth, that gives you the greatest opportunity to create relationships that last, which is ultimately, I feel, kind of the goal, right? I mean, if you're starting a relationship and the goal is for it to end quick, it's not really a relationship. And so, sometimes things happen, this is not, but if we're going into it from that standpoint of like, I really desire this to work, and obviously, if I mean with your parents or with your siblings, hopefully that is a lifetime relationship as much as possible, and so that's why I feel like when you can create breadth and you can kind of use what we're talking about today as a way to first create that within the breadth within self, because we can only get as deep in other relationships as we do with the relationship that we have with ourselves.
I think that's key, right? To me, I felt as though I had my desire. I honor what you said about not entering into a relationship with the goal of it being short term. Sometimes I would enter into certain relationships knowing that there was something that I had to gain that would be short term in nature, I guess, but not, it was well understood by both parties, right? That it would be short term in nature, not romantic friendship wise, for
Sure.
clarity,
And for
right?
for context, it was relative to breadth.
Yes, for breadth.
For yeah, it's
Okay.
it's hard to it's hard to get a lot of breadth if the goal is to have a short relationship.
Okay.
So that
That
was the context, and I
Thank you for
apologize if I
helping
didn't
me with the
clarify that.
context,
Yeah.
because I was like, I'll admit, like, there were
Mhm,
friends I had where I knew they were moving or
mhm.
something was changing in their lives, and we
Sure.
weren't gonna be able to be friends for a long period of time, but I wanted to know something, I could learn from them, they could learn from me before they were heading off across country or something, so I knew it wasn't gonna be a long term, but
Yeah.
and friendships, as much as you do your best to make them last for a long period of time, they become more acquaintances once they're that distance away. However, when it came to like relationships, romantic partnerships, I would get in these partnerships, and then when they wouldn't align and things would fall apart, I would feel like I was broken, that something was wrong with me. Somehow it always flipped back. And I inner critic, right? It just full fledged attack, full scale attack. There's something wrong with me that I can't make relationships work. Therefore, I am broken.
Mm,
When that begins to happen, you start to get close minded and close hearted, right? Your heart starts to close up and go, I'm unworthy of love.
mm,
And I'm unworthy of being seen by somebody. Because clearly, every time I open myself up to someone, I'm rejected, right? And that speaks to what we were talking about in the last podcast, which makes you feel dysregulated, emotionally dysregulated. Mm. That is emotional dysregulation to the nth degree. Rejection makes you feel as though you cannot get your feet under you to feel worthy of love. But the thing is, having an open mind and an open heart is a two-step process to getting connected to yourself enough to get connected and have the level of relationship that I now have with you. And had I not recognized that and been willing to take the steps to fight back my inner critic and understand, first I needed to silence that negative voice in my head. I really, really needed to find a way to move through the negativity that was telling me that I was unworthy of love because all of the other relationships hadn't aligned, and understand that every one of those relationships had actually taught me about myself. That then allowed me to understand what I desired in a relationship and my growth opportunities. Open my mind and use it as the growth that it was. So, open mind,
Mm.
grow. Then, open my heart to the potential of limitless love, a love that could be greater than anything I ever thought possible. So, stop limiting love by my thoughts and open my heart to something that was so much greater than anything I had ever experienced before. Stop placing that on the potential of what it could be. So get the thought process out of it. So now, not only did I have an open mind about what I could learn through the experience, I had an open heart for something, for love to be greater than anything I could ever anticipate. That allowed me to be prepared for you.
Mm.
That's so different than any way I ever approached any other relationship in my life.
Mm.
And I feel like that's been a huge, huge reason that I've allowed the experience of you.
Mm. Thank you, baby. That was beautiful.
Mm, it's
I
just truth.
appreciate you. I wish I could say the exact same, but unfortunately, I wasn't in a space at that point when we met to understand that. And mine came through the process of our relationship and realizing that we don't think love, we feel love. And the reason why, there's a reason why we say, thinking, I'm hitting, touching my head,
Hitting your head.
not like thinking, I'm touching my heart, but no, when we say I'm feeling, we like, we touch our hand to our chest. We don't say like, I'm feeling it. And it's all,
Oh.
like, hitting my head with what I'm feeling like that just, I know they seem silly, but there's a reason,
Yeah.
because intuitively we know these things. And so when we're I had spent so much time thinking about love or relationships and what I was doing wrong, and a lot of the same things you were talking about. What is wrong with me? Why can't I keep a long term relationship? What is going on? And and so many other questions like that. So
They
many other
go, yeah.
questions, and so when we met and we had our different dynamic of uh you know of flowing through and getting to fall in love with my best friend, I got to realize that I no longer had to think about it. It was I had to open my heart up. I had to feel through this, and it was the more that I allowed myself to love and create a greater connection of love within me, not from a narcissistic standpoint or anything, but from a deep, authentic acceptance, which I feel is so important. Narcissism love is a projection. True, authentic love is an acceptance.
Yeah.
And so when I was able to fully accept myself and understand myself, understand who I am and what I desire in life and how to desire to experience life, then I could connect with you at that level. And then we realized through that we had so many similarities in that, and that really was able to expand the breadth. And so through that breadth, then we got to lean in on experience, right? And then we got to have that experience because each time we expanded the breadth of our relationship and the depth of our relationship, then the experiences followed. And then that just compounded and it creates this beautiful loop of just love. I don't of deep, incredible, amazing love that both feel deeply blessed for every single day, and we wake up excited. Like I get to live. I get like we both say like every you know what I'm talking
Every
about.
morning.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love
Yeah.
getting to wake up next to you, or I love getting to see you have your morning coffee, or for you
Cacao now.
cacao or kefir,
Yeah.
whatever you're into,
Cacao, kefir.
all the good stuff. And then even throughout the day, it's just getting to just like, gosh, I'm so blessed and I'm so lucky. Like I'm so grateful. We say these things to each other every single day, not from a have to, but because we're inspired to, because that love is so it just grows, and it's just you can't not like it just is. And so that's the beauty of that. And so again, and it never could have happened had you not done that within yourself and I had not done that within myself. Then we're inherently limiting the love of the relationship that it could ever have.
And I feel that open mindedness and the open heartedness came in stages, as you express as well, by way of never asking the other for more than each other was prepared to offer. Even if one was prepared for a little more than the other at a given stage in our relationship, it was okay. We knew we were going to be together no matter what. And so we didn't push. There was never a push or a pull. It was, I've reached this stage where I'm feeling like we could move to the next level, but that's okay. That's where I'm at. And when you're ready to meet me there, then I'll be here. Until then, it's good. And we just held that space, and we were never at a point where it was a demand. That's where, again, having the open mind, I can learn while we're at different stages. And an open heart, I can hold space from love, knowing that it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just different.
Mm.
And so we're going to be together no matter what's happening. So why do I need to place pressure no matter where one is or the other is? Let's just hold space. And I've observed, and I know what I had done in my past relationships or what had been done to me. If one of us was at a different stage in the progression of a relationship, it was pressure, a lot of pressure, right? Why are you not where I'm at? We both made active choices to not do that to one another.
Mhm.
And what that did for us from a spiritual growth standpoint, from an emotional growth standpoint, from a learning about self, and even just a learning being a human standpoint, was astronomical, right? We could learn from that space in a way that I don't know that I've ever learned in my life, right? But that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't both put in that forethought of how do we have that open mind and that open heart and use our connection for expansive growth in love together and not worry about what everybody else thinks, feels, or the pressure that's getting placed on us from outside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so key. Um, a relationship is only us. It has nothing to do with anyone else. And so I feel like that's hard. You hear about a lot of people struggle with external pressures of their relationship, and that's really tough to hear that so many people struggle with that. And it's just, that's just us sticking with what is best for us and letting go of anything outside of ourselves. You know, and because we're not the same person, we're going to be at different stages in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be that way. We
Always.
can't expect someone else to be exactly where we are because they're not the exact same person as we are. At least not at the exact same time. I mean, there's going to be some overlap, 100%. That's how that works. And but guiding each other through that and understanding and knowing that you're safe all the way through. If instead of throwing an ultimatum or a demand, which often doesn't lend to the best experience of feeling free and open. That's maybe not the best expression of love. Where maybe when you're like what we experienced, where it is more free and open, and we were there for each other, and we walked through and we talked through, and we definitely shared boundaries across this. It wasn't just like, hey, it's
Yeah.
free, everyone, well,
Yeah.
it's like,
Whatever
no,
you
whatever.
want.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't like that, and that's really important to clarify. But it was free in the fact that you shared and I shared, and we both understood where we were coming from, and we walked through it, hand in hand, heart to heart, uh, and we provided logic to it too. And so
Yes.
it made sense, and we were always aware that we were on the same page, or at least definitely in the same chapter,
Yes.
of the same book. And there was a movement. If at any point, and we always said this, if at any point you don't feel like you're ready, or this isn't the right fit, tell me. And we
Yeah.
continue to say that. That's important
Mhm.
because again, this is not a as you were saying in the last episode. This isn't just, hey, we're done, and so now we just should be good for the rest of the time. It's a continued conversation. It's a continued expression. It's continued understanding. It's a continued co-creation, and that's what again depth and breadth is. And then experience is how we grow that and understand each other through that depth and breadth.
Yeah. And the fact that I get a playmate to do all of this with, that's another key.
Yeah,
We have to remember that we're each other's playmate.
yeah,
And that should be at least for me.
yeah,
I That's so fun that we get to go through the rest of our lives together, not only getting depth and breadth and learning and growing together, but also having fun together.
yeah. Well, that's experience, right?
Yeah.
And that is. It doesn't. Not all experience has to be serious.
Yeah.
We have serious moments, but we definitely have a lot of fun moments,
And a lot
every
of
day.
goofy, and we don't take each other too seriously or ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And so when we do have those questions where number one question, do we fight?
Hmm.
And number two, how do you get the relationship so close?
Hmm.
These are the things that we do. And you're right, it's not just about length of time, but time has allowed us to get it to that depth and breadth. And it will just continue. And it allows us to gather more tools and techniques and resources that we utilize that bring us even closer together.
Hmm.
So we're just thrilled to be able to share because this is for reals.
Yeah.
This is for reals and it's so much fun.
Yeah. It's the greatest thing that I have known in this experience to be to be loved and to love at that capacity is something I never knew was possible. And so to be able to experience that with someone where it's reciprocated is really special. And it is available for everyone. Oftentimes we're just not shown that it's possible. I didn't know was possible, and anything around love I thought was just created by Hallmark. And so, it seemed more like a contract or, an agreement, and doesn't mean you couldn't have fun or couldn't enjoy the time, but ultimately it didn't seem like it was that. I don't know, I couldn't even comprehend the type of relationship that you and I have now back then. So it's amazing. It's funny as I'm just kind of both thinking and feeling through it.
Heart
It's
and mind align.
yes, exactly. Some people might say, "Well, how do I even start, or how do I even know?" And I would offer that I could almost guarantee that you've already been through something like this, because I'm sure there's been something that you've really. I'm going to make a parallel here. This isn't exact, but it's just something to get people to like. I don't know even how to get started on what you're talking about.
Mhm.
I'm going to talk about golf for me. And there's a lot of people in the world who really like golf, right? And even if you're not great at it, it's still a beautiful, fun experience. But the first time you play, almost everyone that I've talked to that plays golf was like, I got hooked for the first time. It's like they loved it, they enjoyed it, and what they knew about the game was far littler than what maybe now. And there's a lot of people who could be really good, and maybe they have natural talent and they kind of can dive right in and they can enjoy and play well. But like as they understand more and they create more depth with the game and more breadth with the game, then they get better, and then their enjoyment of the game even expands even more. Or someone who maybe doesn't have as much natural talent but they really really love it, they can learn, they can grow, and they can train themselves to grow, to get that, and dive more into it and experience it. And so you can be the worst golfer in the world or the best golfer in the world. There's you can still have a lot of depth and breadth in the game. And that could be in so many things. I mean, and I'm just using golf because that's my greatest example, but it
Yeah.
could be in art or, I mean, music or cars or reading or, I mean, anything in life. And so that's what I want to say is, when it comes to love and relationships, we don't really think about it from that standpoint. And so we kind of we get in our own way and then we start thinking. And so if we can, it's a lot easier to do something that we know we've already done before. And so if we can start to recognize, where we are already uh, approaching life from this perspective, then that can actually help us move into the depth and breadth of a relationship at a greater capacity than we ever knew was possible.
Yeah. The thing with golf, though, is the golf clubs and the golf course doesn't talk back, right? It does. We just don't always listen. And I feel like that's where we start to get into our head, right?
Right.
If we get mad and we throw the club, very rarely does a goose throw it back at us.
No, totally. But there are other golfers. There's,
Yeah.
when you're playing tournaments or you're playing events or playing with friends who talk back, and there's like, there's a full experience. We don't have to go deep into it, but
Yeah.
for me, I feel like I could run a lot of parallels. And again, I started out saying this isn't an exact. It's just
Yep.
a
I totally get you.
parallel. Yeah.
But that is where, if anybody's listening to this and they want to dive deeper and ask questions, I so strongly encourage you to post comments wherever you're listening to this, because you do have such depth and breadth in golf and using golf as an analogy for so many things spiritually and relationship wise. And you used to coach people in that very way. And it does give you that entry point into taking something that that most people know, and creating parallels so that you can say, all right, I get it now. Where before it was a foreign concept. Now I can draw those parallels and I can make it more like tangible. Because if you don't have that tangibility, sometimes it is very challenging to take it and start applying it into your life.
Yeah.
So when we say ask us questions, we mean it like sincerely. eh, Ask us questions. We're here to answer. And if we can't answer, 10 to 1 says we know somebody who has a resource or can answer. We have a pretty wide network. and we're all here to grow together. That's what heart leaders do. We lead from the heart, set example, and we're all about that. So
Absolutely.
let's do it, especially with relationships, right?
Yeah.
That's what keeps us strong and connected and out there making big moves in the world,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And it's such a relative relationships are such a relative thing.
Yeah,
Not 100% of what we do is going to work for anyone else,
right,
but there are going to be bits and pieces. And when others can share theirs, and that's something we can bring into ours, and we can understand if that does align or not and how it can grow, allow us to grow. And
right.
so it becomes again a co-creation in that sense. So that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And above all, no one is a failure
Yeah.
just because a relationship did not align. That I think is a key message to take away. I know I felt like that. And I just want to repeat again and again, you're not a failure if you've had a relationship and it did not align. If you've ever thought that about yourself or you're feeling it now,
Mhm.
it just means it was not the one for you. And maybe there was something in there that you were meant to learn.
Mhm.
And now you have an opportunity. The question is, what will you do with it? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not a failure. You're not unlovable.
Yeah.
These things. I've felt them too. And it does when you're in those moments, it's the worst. When
It
you feel
is.
feeling unlovable was one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
Thinking I would never find anyone in my life, and that I was getting ready to be okay with being on my own for the rest of my life.
And
Right
then
before
I
I,
found
yeah.
you.
Yes. Exactly, and that's oftentimes, and I feel like this is a beautiful segue into one thing I want to make sure that we talk about in this podcast is what is the difference between open hearted and open minded, and really have like a clear understanding of that differentiation and or how they are different and all of that because had I not felt some level of open-heartedness and open-mindedness, I don't know if I would have met you at that time. I don't know, but I felt so closed off, and then just last little bit, I was like, I feel like I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna see. I'm just gonna open myself to something completely new, something different. That happened to be meditation, and I opened myself up to that, which then led me to you, as a teacher, as a guide, as a mentor. And so it's we just never know what's in the next door or what's right in front of us, and we're just in that last little bit. But it is important to understand. At the time I wouldn't have said, "Hey, I have an open mind and an open heart." Now looking back, I can tell you I did. I just didn't realize I did. And so it might help to kind of just to share that.
Well, and as I was mentioning, like the open mind was, it allows you to be willing to explore new thought concepts, right? Your willingness to explore meditation, your willingness to do things that you hadn't done before.
Mhm.
That allowed you to go outside your normal purview because you hadn't even done yoga. Like none of that was something you had ever explored before. But the open heart was that willingness to say, I am willing to accept that I can be loved and that I will love. I don't know how. I don't know in what way. Maybe it's as a friend. Maybe it's as a mentor. Whatever that is, but that's not my mind. I'm not thinking about that. I'm just open to the possibility of whatever is. My heart is open to whatever flows.
Mhm.
And that's where the connection was able to be made. Because as you said, we flowed through a lot of different things. It's not as though we started out in a romantic bond, and we've talked about that.
Mhm.
But it's that whole difference of you can have an open mind and be willing to learn something different, but is your heart open to whatever the tie, that emotional feeling, um, whatever that energy is that will flow to, because some of us just cut ourselves off from that energy, that coherence, that heart coherence, we can call it.
Mm.
But the mind can be open. We're willing to do an information share, collect even new awareness. That we're all for.
Yeah. And I even feel to some degree at that time I was struggling with an open heart but a closed mind. And that can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And and through that I I felt that those feelings of being unloved and not knowing what that would be like, but still keeping hope. But my mind was telling me that I'm just going to be rejected, or I'm just going to, it's not going to work, or it's only going to last for a little bit, or I'm the problem, or all these other things. And so, and then that's the narrative. And then if I had stuck in that, then I would have really missed out on the greatest love of my life. And so, yeah, it's just through the process of getting out of my own way and opening my mind and aligning it with my open heart, that's when the opportunity presented itself. And so yeah, that's why I just kind of wanted to make sure we kind of just touch on those little bits, because um, we don't, sometimes we just don't realize like just how we're unintentionally showing up because we've been hurt. And so many, especially when it comes to love, so many of us have been hurt so many times, and it's hard. It is.
And that is really a key part of why, with the Heart Leader podcast, we say where heart and mind align. It is key for that.
Yeah.
It is very, very key. So thank you for bringing us back to that so we could re engage.
It's a circle.
It's a circle. And thank you for joining us on another episode of the Heart Leader podcast. As always, if you have found this to be a very informative podcast for you, do us a favor and hit like and subscribe. That helps us know that we're making content that is meaningful for you. And if there is anything that we can answer for you along the way, don't hesitate to just jot us a line wherever you are listening to or watching this. We love engaging with you and answering any and all comments and questions. Until next time, we cannot wait to hear all of your feedback and chat with you right here in the Heart Leader podcast.